Okay, so we're going to be doing sequences on the calculator. Now, the number one thing we need to do is get you to clear your calculator out of any weird modes that you are in, okay? So we're gonna go through a process. If any of you have like a game on your calculator that you can't afford to lose, then you're unfortunately not able to clear your calculator. Only a few kids nowadays are nerdy enough to have a game downloaded onto their TI-84 calculator. So I'm going to tell you what buttons to push to clear your calculator and get it out of any weird modes that would stop you. All right, you're going to hit second, and then you're going to hit plus, and then it's 7, 1, and 2. Second plus 7, 1, 2. And that will clear your calculator of any weird modes that it is in and set it back to like factory new. All right, next, you're gonna go hit the mode button because we need to get it out of the normal thing, which is called func mode, function, of course, and you're gonna set it into a different mode. Take a wild guess which one it is. Seq, S-E-Q, that stands for sequence mode. So we're changing the mode to sequence mode, S-E-Q. Now, the way we'll know that you did that right is when we hit the Y equals button, it should look like the screen right here. So let's make sure that you put yours properly into sequence mode by quitting out of the mode menu, hitting the Y equals button, which is this one right here. See the Y equals button? And it should look like what we have on the screen. I'm gonna walk around and make sure that you're in the right spot. Okay, we got it fixed for the 6 or so kids that were not in the right place. And I understand, these are confusing. That's why I knew I needed to stop the video, go out and help people, because it's really common to have the calculator do weird things at that moment. All right, so now that we're in here, I'm gonna try to help you understand how to use it. But first, we're gonna go off to the side, and everybody write this down. U1, we're gonna make ourselves a sequence that we can put in. U1 equals 5. Do you get, I could have started with U sub 0. I could have started with U sub 2024. But the most common one, and if you get to pick, start with U sub 1. So that means our first term is 5. Next, there's this, UN equals UN minus 1. We have to type all that into the calculator, and I will show you how. And then we're going to do a really simple one. We're just going to make it add 7. Now, last but not least is the domain. And let's just remember that on the test, if you don't have the domain, I can't give you the credit. The domain is the little n is greater or equal to, and then what would it be in this case? 2, because you always go one bigger than that. There's the domain. Now, the good news is that the calculator knows the domain, so we won't have to tell it that. Do you get that we have to tell the calculator what to start with? But weirdly, it's not the first thing we tell it. All right? And we are going to have to tell the calculator at some point to do this. You know? Like we have to tell it to do that. Once you've told it what to start with and what to do, then it can do it and it can tell us all the terms. All right, so let's go over here. N min. I want you to think about what that should mean. N is the little subscript number. You know U sub n? It's saying what little subscript number is the minimum, as in the smallest one. Do you get that we chose U sub 1? And therefore 1 would be the smallest one? And therefore this should be a 1. Is it always going to be a 1? No. But when you start with U sub 1, you'd put a 1 there. This spot right here, that is Got the little black box? It doesn't on yours. You know, it's just that the cursor was blinking when the person took a screenshot of this. You got to put a number there. Let's think about what it means. We just said n min is 1. So u sub n is equal to, what do we always say after u sub n? U sub what? N minus 1. Very good. That's what goes right there. So how are you going to type that? Use a lowercase u. And then how am I going to do a subscript? You should be able to tell by context clues. How do we tell it? Sub parentheses. U sub. Where's the u? Okay, that's a good question. Where's the u? Let's go back out on this screen. Where is the u? All right, so when you're in sequence mode, you have two choices here, and I get why, you know, like people would be confused by it. There is a little letter U right here, and I get why people might think that that's what we would use. But there's also this master variable button right there. Try hitting this one and tell me, does it bring up a U or does it not?
Brings up an N.
Ah, that'll be handy for later when we want to do U sub n minus 1. All right, so how about the U that's like the letter U, but wait, that's a capital U. Like if I go and do this one, it's a capital U, and I specifically said lowercase u. Can anybody find where the lowercase u is? Yes.
Above the 7.
It's above the 7. It's right there. It's the blue one, not the green one. And I totally get how that's confusing. You might just think you need any u there, but the capital U will mess you up. You need the lowercase u, so it's second 7. So has everybody got a little lowercase u right there? Some kids are going to think they got it because they have an uppercase U and they don't know the difference. If you've got a lowercase u, please now compare with the person straight across from you. In this row, it's these two. If they got the wrong kind of u, help them out. It can't be the uppercase u. It's got to be the lowercase. Please compare with the person straight across.
Yeah.
You two are going to compare.
I know you got it.
So you're making sure that their little lowercase u, this line is correct. Share with them. Because it's so common that kids will have the uppercase u there and they're like, it's not working. All right, then we need a little n. Do you remember we got that from this button right here? See the n at the end of it? Minus 1 and the parentheses. Now, after that, which is always going to be there, you can just leave it there. If you do it right on your calculator and just use your same calculator on the test, remember I said always? This is always going to be there. This might change to maybe u sub 0 instead of u sub 1, but this will always be there. So if you get typed in right now and you just leave it there, awesome. You won't have to mess with it. What you would have to mess with is what's after it. In this case, we're adding 7. That makes it arithmetic. Little review from yesterday. So put a plus 7 after it. Next, it says u n min. I get that that's a little confusing, but you can figure it out. We defined n min right here. What's n min? 1. So really what they're asking is, what's u sub 1? Because n min is 1. So they're asking, what's u sub 1? Do you get it makes sense that they're asking us for u sub 1? They're asking us, what do we start with? And in our equation, we're using this one right here. Our u n min, which is u sub 1, is 5. So weirdly, the last thing you tell the calculator is, what's the first number? All right. Now, this is important to understand. This is where you could put in a whole nother sequence. you'd call it, instead of U sub whatever, it's V sub. Don't worry, I don't think we're ever going to use that. This is where you could put in a third sequence. W sub n and W sub 1. And okay, so you are not going to use these. You could if you wanted to compare two sequences, but we don't need to go to that level. So all you're going to need is these three lines. And if you got the first one saying 1, this one was the hard one because it was weird to find where that little u was, which was above the 7. And then the last one, u sub 1 is what this really means, is 5. Then you got the sequence in. So why would this ever be handy? Because if I wanted the 23rd term, it would be very tedious to have to type in 5 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 so many times, okay? But now, I bet somebody smart is going to know where we're going to be able to find the list of all of the outputs, like u sub 1, u sub 2, u sub 3. Has anybody found it already? What'd you find?
If you hit second graph, it pops up a table with all the answers.
Table, you got it. It's right here above your graph button is table. So you go second table. And it's got a nice little list there. Now, if yours says error, that means that you're using n's that aren't defined. Arrow down until you find your n's that are defined. Now, if yours didn't work, I understand. Things happen. You maybe have typed in a capital U instead of a lowercase u. You might have something else weird that's not working in there. But if it worked, please have the table up on your calculator and compare your table to the kid next to you. And if they're stuck, help them, please. I can't be the only tech helper in here. Help them out. Make sure your tables look the same. Maybe their N is messed up.
Can you go second? You have to keep doing it. Second. Oh, let's turn it down.
All right. If you did it right, would you please write down what U sub 10 was? U sub 10. Did you guys get 68? Raise your hand if you did. Okay. Now, somebody out there is lost. Theirs is not working, and they're probably hiding because they're like embarrassed. It's not your fault. Something just is going wrong with your calculator. You need to ask the kid next to you. So, I'd like you to, again, compare with the kid next to you on table and have it highlighted in 10. And then you can help them if they are. Okay, so we had all kinds of people get stuck. I got them fixed, and I think we're in good shape now. I think everybody understands, I hope, how to put in a sequence. We're going to test that right now. So this is the part where instead of me holding your hand the whole way, I'm just going to give you a sequence, and I want you to type it in. This time, we're not going to say u sub 1. We're going to say u sub 0 equals 60,000. Don't need to put in a comma. un equals un minus 1. Notice how I said that that could always stay there because we're always going to use that. Times 0.8. I'm multiplying by 0.8. This is a real world problem where I'm saying I have a $60,000 car, but it's depreciating 20%. That's why I'm multiplying it by 0.8. That means it's going down in value every year by 20%. Can you put that into your calculator? So there's 3 lines. Becca, what's n min in this case? 0. Min is smallest, n. The smallest n we have is 0. Very good. The next thing is u sub n, and I hope you just left it there. Otherwise, you'd have to go above the 7 key to get the U. Parentheses n minus 1. The n is on that variable key right next to the alpha button is where the n is. And then this one's times 0.8. And then there's a third line. And the third line is U and min. And min was 0. So they're really saying, what's U sub 0? What is U sub 0? It's right here, 60,000. If you put that in properly, raise your hand. Cool. Then I think you know how to do this. If you do, I'm going to walk around and see what your table says about U sub 8. That means 8 years from now, what's my car going to be worth? Way less than 60. I'm going to go see what U8 is. So find that on your table. And I'm going to go walk around and see if you know how to use this yet. Okay, we got all the gremlins out of the computers. So it's working, and everybody now got about 10,000. I want you to have context again. This was a car that was originally worth $60,000. It was dropping 20%. It was 0.8 that we were multiplying by. So it was going down 20% every year. After 8 years, the car's only worth 10,000. All right. Now, I want to actually get to your homework because I think you have learned enough that you could do it. So let's actually find the homework that is posted for today. Open it up. And we don't need all the rest of the slides to be able to do it. There's a couple more words I want to refer to, basically terminology that you'll need to know. But please find the homework that is posted for today. Not the notes, the homework.
It's 3 plus 1 plus 7 is 9. It's either arithmetic or it's either arithmetic or so it's 9 and 10. So it's plus 3 plus 4 plus 7 plus 9 is 24 plus 11.
All right. Would you please read for me, Mr. Albright, number 1.
1, negative 3, 9, negative 27.
Now, do you see how it's switching back and forth between positive and negative?
Yeah.
Does that feel like you're just subtracting something every time?
No.
No. Does it seem like it's multiplying by a negative maybe? So, what does it actually want to know about this equation? Because I could tell a lot of things. I could write an equation for it. I could tell you what the next term is. Problem number 1, what does it ask you for directions?
Classify each sequence below known as arithmetic, geometric, or neither, then determine the next 3 terms of each sequence.
All right, so I know it's multiplying by negative 3. Does that tell me something? Yes, it tells me it's a what kind? Geometric. So that's the first thing you have to answer is geometric. And then it wants the next few. Well, now that I figured out what it's doing, it's multiplying by negative 3, I can use my calculator. And I probably wouldn't use the fancy sequence mode to do this. You could, but if I just need to know the next 3 terms, I'm just going to go quit out of that other mode I was in. And I'm just going to say negative 27 times negative 3. And be careful with the negative. If you use the wrong kind of negative, it won't work. You know how there's a negative key at the bottom of the calculator and there's a negative key on the side of the calculator? If you use the wrong one, it won't work. Negative 7 times negative 3. Just keep changing your negatives until you use the right kind. And if you get 81 to pop up, you did it right. Because negative 27 times negative 3 is 81. If yours won't work, I'm telling you, it's your negative sign. You got to use the little negative at the bottom of the keyboard, not the one on the side. Okay, and then I'm gonna times by -3 again. And I get -243, and I think you've got the idea. Now, could I have done this as a sequence in the sequence mode? Yeah, but when they're this easy, and you just want the next couple, then I'd just do that. Okay, is there such a thing as a neither? Yeah, that's when you aren't just adding something, and you aren't just multiplying by something. Then that's not arithmetic, and it's not geometric, so it's neither. Okay, so if there is something where you can't just add something each time, or add a negative, and you can't just multiply by something, or multiply by a decimal, if you can't do either one of those, then it's a neither. And I'm hearing from kids that there's a neither in there, right? Okay. All right. So now, remember that you have a key, and I'm a believer in posting the key. I've been a math student before, and I think it's incredibly frustrating to not know whether you're doing it right. So I'm good with posting the key. You just have to not abuse that. Use it right, do the problem, check it, see if you're doing it right. Nothing wrong with making sure you're doing it right. You want to, if you start doing something wrong and you spend a half hour doing your homework wrong, it's such a huge waste of time. So I post the homework answers right away. If you cheat, per se, and just copy the answers over, it'll just hurt you in the end. Because in the test, you won't understand how to do it. All right, so now I think one more little 2-second review, and I need you to look up, please, because I know you're in your homework, which is awesome, but they're going to ask you something and you're not going to know. Look up, look at me for just a second, I'm almost done. If they ask you for the common difference versus the common ratio, I think some of you probably know that that's referring to adding something or multiplying by something. Okay, the common difference, that's the arithmetic kind, and the common ratio, that's the geometric kind. But sometimes when they just tell you that, oh, by the way, I went from 20 to 28 and I didn't add 8. That's a common ratio. It's hard for kids to figure out which way to divide it. So here's how you divide it. You go, oh, so then you must mean, since I didn't just add 8, you must have done 28 divided by 20. That's what you multiplied by. It's the ratio of this one on the top over that one. That's how you find the common ratio. I guarantee you that's going to come up on your tests and in your homework. So I just wanted to show you that. Of course, if it's adding, you're going to be smart enough to go, oh, they added 8. But on the multiply kind, take this one divided by that one, and you can see what they were multiplying by. And that's called a common ratio. All right, I think with that, we have enough, and that's all I have for the video for today.